There is a real gang war going on in Jacksonville. ATK and 1200 are at war with 6 Block. It is blatant. They shoot each other and then they post about it on social media. When one of the opposition dies, you see photographs of Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, the GOAT, being posted in the early morning hours. You see laughing emojis. They produce and post drill rap videos making fun of people who have been shot and murdered. There is nothing fun about the gang war in Jacksonville. And on June 23rd of 2024, this violence spilled into Tampa when these 4 men decided and planned and came to Tampa for one night, for one purpose, and that was to hunt and track and kill Charles Jones. That is the only reason they came to Tampa. That was a planned, premeditated, cold, calculated, organized mission that they did here in Tampa on the only one night that they were here. They wanted to take out their rival. They wanted to kill Charles Jones. He is Mr. Six, Little Six, Six. He is 6 Block. He is the most prominent member of 6 Block. And the only reason that they were here in Tampa, Florida, was to kill him. All of their efforts were to kill him. This was a conspiracy that started long before June 23rd of 2024. This started in Jacksonville long before they came here. And the evidence shows that. They conspired with one another to come to Tampa. There is never going to be an eyewitness in here that is going to be able to identify those 3 gunmen because they were prepared for this mission. They were heavily armed and they were masked. And those eyewitnesses that talked to law enforcement couldn't give one detail about those shooters because they were ambushed and they were afraid and they were fearful of their lives. Camilla Bentley panicked. She prayed in her car for the car to start. And in a panic, she fled out of that parking lot for her life and crashed into Armani Turner's vehicle. Armani Turner did the same thing. She backed up and she fled for her life with her passengers. She fled for help. She went and down that road that she didn't know and saw USF patrol, saw flashing lights, and got help, and then went back to where her boyfriend had been shot and gunned down. The 2 other victims in this case, Gino Norris and Xavier Edwards, they can't give you details about those shooters because they were in a vehicle. Gino Norris was asleep when all of a sudden he heard gunfire and then a car crashes. And they fled. They fled for their lives because they were in fear. They ran and they hid in the 3rd floor of the Holiday Inn until law enforcement arrived to get them life-saving treatment. So there are no eyewitnesses in this case that can identify those armed gunmen because they did their job very well. They planned this to the most tiniest detail. You don't have an eyewitness, but what you have is much better than any eyewitness that can ever testify in any case. You have what we call a silent witness, the unflinching eye of a camera lens. The video evidence in this case tells you and shows you everything that happened to Charles Jones and his friends on June 23rd of 2024. All of those cameras at Truth 18. The cameras covering the door, the cameras covering the steps leading up to it, the parking lot. All of the cameras at Teasers, the first club that they went to, that covers the door and that parking lot. And it shows that Isaiah Chance, Sean Gathright, Rashad Murphy, and Davion Murphy, and Alicia Andrews were on a coordinated mission. You don't have to guess what they were doing because you can see it for yourselves. Those cameras don't lie. This is at Teasers. Every time where the victim was supposed to be, he was supposed to be at Teasers, the silver Chevy Cruze appears first. This is a coordinated attack. The silver Chevy Cruze is the surveillance team. They are the eyes of this mission. Their job is to track and locate Charles Jones. And Isaiah Chance is using his girlfriend, Alicia Andrews, for cover because he's got a COVID mask on in June in Florida so that his face cannot be seen, and he doesn't want to appear out in the open with other men, with other gang members, because that will tip Charles Jones and all of his friends that there is going to be trouble. This plan is planned in every detail. They are using a girl so he can be seen walking with a girl like he's just going out to a club. And the silver Chevy Cruze gets there first, and then after they walk around to the front and get eyes on the victim and see who he's with, see what vehicles that he is in, they communicate to the second vehicle, the black Chevy Impala. The video camera, every place the victim went, shows these two cars, and these are Jacksonville cars. There are two cars that come to Tampa, and they come to Tampa on June 22nd of 2024. You know from the mapping where they went. They went to the Airbnb that they had booked specifically to come down here to kill Charles Jones. That is all they did that night, was scout the location, track the victim from club to club, and then to the hotel where they finally kill him. The video shows you exactly what happened in this case. And the video shows that they were prepared. They brought their masks, they brought their firearms, and they thought ahead to have two teams. So the silver Chevy Cruze is the surveillance team. The black Chevy Impala is the hit team. Let's call this what it is. It was a hit on Charles Jones, and the evidence and the video support that that was the only goal that they had. At Teasers, they never go in that club. They never approach the bouncer. They never approach the door. Their only interest is Charles Jones. And when they see him, Alicia Andrews and Isaiah Chance leave. They've done their job. And they communicate to the second vehicle, Sean Gathright, who is in the Chevy Impala. Here is the victim. Again, this is the timeline, 2:29 a.m. And the silver Chevy Cruze has already parked, and the defendant, Isaiah Chance, and Alicia Andrews have walked around the corner and not approached this door, but walked enough around the back of that parking lot so they could see where the victim was. See his car, see who he's with. How many people are they going to see with the victim? How many people are they going to have to shoot and kill? This diagram shows State's Exhibit 39 exactly their path that night. They're not there to go to a club. They're there to see where Charles Jones and his friends are. There is so much digital evidence in this case, and you have heard a lot about the license plate readers in this case, that show coordination, tandem movement between the silver Chevy Cruze and the black Chevy Impala. No dispute the silver Chevy Cruze belongs to a relative of Rashad and Davion Murphy. No dispute that Rashad Murphy specifically got a vehicle that is not registered to his name before coming to Tampa to commit first-degree premeditated murder. He got that vehicle for a specific purpose. No dispute, the black Chevy Impala is Sean Gathright's mother's vehicle that he personally uses, that we have video footage and license plate reader after license plate reader after license plate reader that show it in his house in Victoria Lane in Jacksonville. That's his car. Those two Jacksonville cars come to Tampa on the very day that they know Charles Jones, Julio Foolio, is scheduled to appear at a club that lists the address. And they scout that address. Their cell phone records show that they go there earlier because they're casing the location. They want to see where the entrance is. The cell phone mapping. We've heard a lot about the cell phone mapping. And those coordinates for all of the cell phones, for Alicia Andrews, for Charles, for Isaiah Chance, for Sean Gathright, for Davion Murphy, and for Rashad Murphy, the phone that stays in Jacksonville. Those records aren't provided by law enforcement. They are kept by the cell phone providers. It's their data from their equipment. Those are accurate information. Sometimes there is not all the data that may be available. Some may be missing, but it is accurate data. They are kept for business purposes, for billing purposes, for customer service to ensure their clients get the best coverage. Those are the records. Those are the data that law enforcement is looking at. But they don't just stop there. They confirm and they verify. They verify it with real video evidence showing that person in the location at the time where the device is registering. One example, Alicia Andrews' cell phone mapping shows her phone in the vicinity of Truth 18 around 4 a.m. And guess what? They're there. They're on video. 4:03 to 4:05 a.m., more video evidence, still shots from the video surveillance of Truth 18, showing them, again, they don't go to any club. They walk and they check out that sign. That sign happens to be right in front of, across the parking lot, the front door of Truth 18, the very club that Charles Jones and his friends are entering. They are tracking them, tracking Charles Jones and his friends. They are the eyes of the surveillance mission. Here's from her phone, from the digital extraction from the iCloud. That was taken on her phone. It happens to be a view of Truth 18 at the very moment when Charles Jones and his party are getting ready to leave. The evidence clearly shows they are conducting surveillance, and they are communicating. Alicia Andrews, the person who is not in the gang, is communicating with Sean Gathright's phone, the other person not in a gang. That is how sophisticated they are. They planned this, and they planned not to get caught. They know law enforcement will be looking at them when this happens. So they are utilizing people that are not known gang members to use their phones and their devices so they do not get caught. And there is communication between her device and Sean Gathright's device all through the tracking of the victim, including Alicia Andrews' device sharing her location. 4:25 a.m. This is when she started sharing the location with Sean Gathright. 4:14 a.m., that is when the black Chevy Impala again arrives after the silver Chevy Cruze has already put eyes on the victim and his friends. The video evidence in this case has been examined by law enforcement, by Detective Ramos, multiple times to get all of the facts that we can. And these are the facts that you can see for yourself. These are the true facts of this case. And it shows coordination between those two vehicles. It shows the only reason and the only purpose that the silver Chevy Cruze and Isaiah Chance and Alicia Andrews are at Teasers and Truth 18 and then at Home to Suites is to get eyes on the victim. They're not there to have a drink. They're not there to go into a club. They have no interest in any of those things. That's what you do if you're a tourist when you come to Tampa. You check out the parking lot, you check out a sign. That's not what they're doing. They are there at the very moments that the victim is there. Charles Jones went into that hotel and then comes, and you can clearly see he is in the front seat passenger of his car. That is important because you will see that when the shooting finally happens, the shooters track the very vehicle that he is in. Because again, Isaiah Chance and Alicia Andrews have done what they are supposed to do. The second video is now when you can see the black Chevy Impala purposely going the long way around the hotel to park on the side so he does not come in direct eyesight or eye line of Charles Jones and his party. This is Tafa McRae pulling up. That's what happens next in the sequence. Again, another person that had been traveling with Charles Jones all night. Now you're going to see him and Aaliyah Albritton, I apologize, get out of his vehicle and go into the bathroom. And it's at this moment that Camilla Bentley pulls into the driver's seat. Here is the silver Chevy Cruze. It doesn't avoid the victim's party. It wants to know exactly where everyone is. They need to know where Charles Jones is. He's been wearing a bright red cap all night. They want to know where the other vehicles are. They are familiar with who Charles Jones is with. Xavier Edwards, Robert Howard. You know they know who Robert Howard is, right? He's the one that went to prison for killing Joe Rod Adams on a manslaughter. You know they know every single person who Charles Jones is with that night. Tafa McCray, close friend of Charles Jones, a relative. Xavier Edwards, Gino Norris, all close friends of Charles Jones. His girlfriend, they know all of the vehicles and all of the players that Charles Jones is with. The next sequencing is the silver Chevy Cruze going around the corner to meet up with the black Chevy Impala. And you saw from the Tesla video and the other video of the side angle that the black Chevy Impala isn't registering as a guest in Holiday Inn. They're not registering as a guest in Home to Suites. They're backing in at an angle behind the building so that they cannot be in sight line of the victim and his friends. Now the silver Chevy Cruze again will pass the victim, and this time they will have direct eyesight of where Charles Jones is. They are passing right directly in front of him and his friends and know exactly where all of them are parked. You can see the person with the firearm is targeting his exact location. This is another angle of both shooter 1 and shooter 2 coming around before they fire upon the victim and his friends. Guns already out, masked, and loaded for rapid fire, quick succession. Charles Jones never had a chance. Shooter number 3, hanging out on the back in the very path that Xavier Edwards would drive through trying to flee for his life. All of you got to see that for yourself. You didn't need a witness to tell you what happened to Charles Jones on June 23rd of 2024. The evidence is crystal clear and the videos do not lie. I don't have to prove that a gang war is going on in Jacksonville. I don't have to prove which members killed what other members. None of that is what is at issue in this case. It is relevant to motive, why this homicide happened. The state does not have to prove motive. That is added evidence to show you why this happened, but it is not required. The only 3 things that I have to prove, that the state of Florida has to prove to you to prove first-degree premeditated murder of Charles Jones is 1, Charles Jones is dead. There is no dispute to that, the first element. 2, the death was caused by the criminal act of the defendant. 3, there was a premeditated killing of Charles Jones. all three of those elements have been proven beyond and to the exclusion of all reasonable doubt. And you're going to see that it says the defendant. There are 4 defendants in this case, and you need to apply the evidence, look at the evidence to each one of the defendants separately and individually, and make separate verdicts for each and every one of them. And we have already talked about the principal instruction, but we will talk about that again. It does not matter that Isaiah Chance is in the scouting vehicle. If he intended for this homicide to occur, and he absolutely did, that is the only reason any of them are in Tampa. And if he did something to aid or assist, then you have to treat him as if he had done everything that the shooters have done. And that goes to all 3 of the shooters as well. They are all participating. We may not know which of their bullets penetrated into Charles Jones' vehicles multiple times and into him and killed him. But it is enough that they intended for him to die and that they did something to assist. They all did more than just shoot those firearms. You know they did based on the digital evidence. They tracked him, they followed him, and they hunted him. The digital evidence in this case makes no mistake that on their free time, when they weren't scouting teasers, they were online trying to locate him because the victim was posting online, saying that he is at an Airbnb. You saw all the digital evidence of Sean Gathright. You spent a lot of time looking for where that Airbnb is on his phone. Tried to set up a woman that he knows in Orlando to pose and call one of Charles Jones's friends to find his location at the Airbnb. Rashad Murphy also trying to locate where the victim is. They stalked him, they hunted him, they targeted him, and then when they found him, they gunned him down. That is first-degree premeditated murder. We talked about killing with premeditation. It is consciously reflecting to kill a person before doing it. And we talked about that there is no time that has been placed upon the requirement for premeditation. It can happen in seconds. This premeditation clearly had begun in Jacksonville when Sean Gathright and Isaiah Chance are loading up that black Chevy Impala with heavy bags. Attempted first-degree premeditated murder. This is for counts 3, 4, and 5, and only applied to the shooters. Gino Norris, Xavier Edwards, and Camilla Bentley all survived, but they were purposely shot at. To prove attempted first-degree murder, again, we only have to prove 3 elements beyond and to the exclusion of all reasonable doubt. The defendant intended to commit the crime of first-degree premeditated murder. The defendant committed an overt act toward the commission of first-degree premeditated murder that went beyond mere preparation. And the defendant failed to complete first-degree premeditated murder. They got to the hospital, and all 3 of them survived their injuries. So they were not another victim of this gang war. The line between mere preparation and an overt act is a question of fact, again, for you to decide as a member of this jury. Mere preparation consists of devising or arranging the means or measures to commit the crime. An overt act consists of some movement toward committing the crime after the preparation. You saw the loading of the bags, You saw they scouted teasers the location. You saw they tracked the victim to 2 locations before home to suites. An overt act need not be the last possible act toward completing the crime. An overt act consists of some movement toward committing the crime after preparation. Let's take a look at those videos from home to suites. They're all shooting at the victim vehicle, the black Dodge Charger, and yes, they shoot at Typha McCrae's vehicle as well. He's gotten out of it. Camilla Bentley is in it. But you see shooter 1 is shooting, shooter 2 is shooting, shooter 3 is shooting. Their muzzle flash goes off so many times it is hard to count in those videos. The impact of those guns are setting off that Tesla multiple times. Xavier Edwards, the victim in count 3, shot in his arm. Gino Norris, the victim in count 4, shot in his arm. Take a look at the vehicle of the victim, Charles Jones, that black Dodge Charger. These aren't novices. You heard from Officer De Jesus, a SWAT-trained officer, to maintain proficiency for SWAT. He trains every 2 weeks, not just every 2 weeks. He said to be proficient, he does it on his personal time. To be able to be accurate in high stressful situations, to be able to be accurate in non-stressful situations is a skill. It requires training. Take a look at where these shots are hitting. Every place that was occupied in Charles Jones's vehicle, Xavier Edwards is the driver, Charles Jones is the front passenger, and Gino Norris is in the back. The driver and the passenger seats have been hit. And they haven't been hit just anywhere. They are hit on the headrest. That is skill accuracy. And if it is a hit team, these are kill shots that you are seeing right there. And there is no doubt that is exactly what they are. They are a hit team put together for the sole purpose of killing Charles Jones, Julio Foolio, their arch rival. Look at the back seat where Gino Norris was laying down. They thought he was laying down, or this wouldn't be another attempted murder. They intended to kill Charles Jones and every single person that was in the vehicle with him. That is attempted first-degree murder because they failed to do it. Gino Norris and Xavier Edwards survived. Camilla Bentley, count 5. They knew Tampha McCrae was with Charles Jones, and they targeted his vehicle as well. Camilla Bentley was in the driver's seat and got out of there, but she got shot as well. They knew Charles Jones's friends, his entourage, his party was in this vehicle. And again, it is accuracy, it is skill, because those two shots are right to the rear window. And they cross in front to the front, and you know that they got her. They intended to kill all of the people in those vehicles. That is attempted first-degree murder. The black Chevy Impala. There is no video showing who is inside. There is no video showing their faces when they get out. They have been designated Shooter 1, Shooter 2, and Shooter 3. Let's talk about principles. This is the instruction that the judge will read to you. If the defendant helped another person or persons commit or attempt to commit a crime, the defendant is a principal. and must be treated as if he had done all the things the other person or persons did. If the state proved beyond a reasonable doubt the defendant intended the crime to occur and did some act or said something that was intended to and that did incite, encourage, assist, or advise. This is an or. It just has to be one of these things. And you know that they did multiple things. All of them had multiple roles in this first-degree premeditated murder. For first-degree premeditated murder, the state must prove the defendant intended that the killing of the victim occurred. And they absolutely did. All of them. All of them knew coming to Tampa. That's exactly what the plan was. If the defendant is found to be a principal, he is legally responsible and accountable for everything that his co-defendants did. So how do we know who these armed, masked gunmen are? The video doesn't lie. There are a total of 5. 2 in the silver Chevy Cruze, and they are also covering their face with COVID masks. And then 3 in the black Chevy Impala. The first thing that law enforcement does is they locate and track who the registered owners of those vehicles were. And they did a lot of investigative work with license plate readers, narrowing it down, and that is called deductive investigation, and that is evidence. And they were able to locate the 2 very vehicles involved in this case and track them all the way from Jacksonville to Tampa. And it is no coincidence that they are not only from Jacksonville, but they actually happen to be members of the rival gang of the victim in this case. And it is no coincidence that both of these vehicles are at points traveling in tandem. They are passing the same license plate readers as the other one because they are traveling together. This is a coordinated mission. Every piece of evidence shows and proves that beyond all reasonable doubt. And it leads us to the Airbnb. The detectives in this case followed the evidence. You heard from Detective Ramos how he found this Airbnb, how he was tracking LPR readers, how he found using cell phone footage of data that there was an Uber. You heard from the Ring camera that there was, when he was watching the Ring camera, he could actually hear the Uber driver have a conversation and realized that there was an Uber at play. And it led us to the Ring camera and the Airbnb on Gazebo Pond Lane that coincidentally is within a few miles of the very place Charles Jones was going to be performing. And here Alicia Andrews is by her cell phone records at the vicinity of the Airbnb. And look, there's video evidence showing that she's holding her pink phone in her hand. Here is, and all of these occurred June 22nd. You see the timestamp there. The motion has already happened. She's knocking at the door and somebody lets her in. She is the only one caught on camera. Go back. I want you to take a good look at this photo because it's also very telling. You saw the Vivint cameras from Sean Gathright's home, and you saw what was being packed and loaded up in the black Chevy Impala. People on vacation with heavy bags at a place where they are truly on vacation would park in the two very spots that are there for that Airbnb and unload those heavy bags. There is no black Chevy Impala that is parked in front of that Airbnb. There is no silver Chevy Cruze that is parked there, because they know that Airbnbs have Ring cameras and you have to access the front door. They left out of that Airbnb many times that night. There was a scouting trip to Teasers. There was a trip to McDonald's. None of them are seen entering that Airbnb, even though Davion Murphy's phone places them there, even though Isaiah Chance's phone places them there, even though Sean Gathright's phone places them there. Why is it, do you suppose, they don't want to be seen in Tampa within a few miles of where Charles Jones is going to be performing? It is because they are intending to kill him, and they don't want to have any connection to Tampa. This Airbnb is first booked by, again, Alicia Andrews, who can't do it. And then it is later booked by Rashad Murphy. This is Alicia Andrews, again, entering that day, the only person caught on camera. After the crime had been committed, though, on June 23rd, after Charles Jones had been gunned down, they are now appearing on the Ring camera. Where had they been before then? Davion Murphy, Sean Gathright. Let's take a look. Detective Ramos went to this Airbnb. He filmed it. He took photographs of it. This is the pathway that you have to take in order to get into this glass sliding door with heavy bags. You got to go around the corner, park down that parking lot, and then you got to walk through grass and a dirt path, and then you got to go through a gate. They are hiding their appearance here. You never see Rashad Murphy. You never see Ghost on camera. That is his nickname, Ghost. He never breaks and goes in front of that camera, but you know he was there because the Uber driver picked him up from that location. Isaiah Chance and Alicia Andrews and Rashad Murphy leave Tampa in an Uber back to Sean Gathright. This is what the evidence shows. These are the facts. These are the facts that Tampa Police Department uncovered. It is a departure time of 15:08 and arrival time 18:32 hours. Travel time 3 hours and 24 minutes on June 23rd of 2024, after they had successfully completed their mission and taken out the head of their rival gang. Here's the Uber trip ticket. You heard the testimony from the Uber driver. The only concern that they had was they wanted to eat at one point. Rashad Murphy stayed sleeping, didn't leave. But Isaiah Chance was worried about him speeding, told him not to speed a couple of times. Wonder why he's worried about speeding. Here is that Vivint camera that proves that Rashad Murphy, yes, Rashad Murphy happens to be at the very Airbnb that he booked in his name the day before. Whether he booked it or gave his license to Isaiah Chance, it doesn't matter. He assisted. He allowed his license to be used. And he's actually using the Airbnb. He's there. And there's proof of it on the Vivint camera. Alicia Andrews is there. There's Rashad Murphy and his hat. And they're going to Isaiah Chance's BMW. These are the facts and the evidence of this case, and you get to see it all for yourselves because it was all captured on video. Let's take a look at Rashad Murphy. That's him in the Vivid camera, and that's him after he had been taken in custody in Gwinnett County. Again, the investigation led right to him because the first piece of information that the detectives were able to crack in this case are those vehicles. They don't know the 3 gunmen yet. They don't know the 2 people who are tracking and are in the surveillance team, but they know the silver Chevy Cruze belongs to Jasmine Glennon, who knows Rashad and Davion Murphy, and they know the black Chevy Impala that belongs to Damalie Lyle, Sean Gathright's mother. They don't know where those vehicles are because they fled Tampa the moment that they were done killing Charles Jones and got back to that Airbnb and celebrated. And when he is caught in Georgia because there were bolos put out, felony bolos put out for both of those vehicles, the law enforcement authorities in Georgia located that vehicle, and you heard from those Georgia police officers that he immediately fled because he is in one of the suspect vehicles that was used to kill Charles Jones and injure his friends. He absolutely knows why law enforcement is looking for him. Let's take a look at this Walmart video. That is still photos from the Walmart where he's up there in the corner. That is the day before the murder, June 21st of 2024. And you can see what he's wearing. He's wearing all black. There's been a lot of talk about, oh, well, all black for gunmen is, I guess, not unique. And that may be true, especially for this particular gang, because all of the videos making fun of killing members of 6 Block, they're all dressed all in black just like this. But what somewhat is unusual, I think, in June of Jacksonville, Florida, hot, sunny Florida, maybe not all the black, because even I like to wear all black, but certainly a ski cap in June is somewhat unusual, but useful if you need it to be pulled down and cover your face. He's wearing, and it's not just that he's wearing all black, it's also other things that you have heard that has been uncovered in this investigation. Detective Drabeck says that he is a lefty, that he has been seen using his left hand, Rashad Murphy. And based on the body style, after they have identified all of the players, they then start looking at the videos to see who fits what. And it just so happens he's also wearing these black military combat boots with the leg of the jeans, or these black jeans tucked in, just like shooter number 1 with the extended magazine Glock. And he's using a left hand, and his clothing and body style of the 3 armed gunmen fits shooter number 1. Do I have to prove to you who shooter 1 is, who shooter 3 is, who shooter 2 is? We will never be able to take off their mask, but we absolutely know every player in that black Chevy Impala, beyond and to the exclusion of all reasonable doubt. You do not commit first-degree premeditated murder with anybody else except trusted co-conspirators that are members of your gang, members of your allied gang, or somebody who is your close childhood friend who wants to be in your gang. They would not have let anybody else in to do this. And we all know who they were with. You also heard from Detective Draybeck about the left hand and how when he was interviewing him and when Draybeck was watching him that he was trying to use his right hand and was not quite able to write legibly when he asked him to sign his name. All of that, fleeing from law enforcement, lying to law enforcement, that is consciousness of guilt. They will never admit to law enforcement what they did. They will come up with lie after lie after lie. The cell phone mapping in this case was instrumental, and it is evidence. It is forensic digital evidence. And those cell phones that we all carry are like little miniature computers. And they are also tracking devices. Whether you turn on location services or not, when you are utilizing a phone, you are utilizing cell phone towers. And depending on the cell phone company and the type of technology they have, some are more advanced than others, some are advanced timing that try to actually pinpoint the location, and some is just cell phone data based on cell phone towers that still give you directionality and a range of where that cell phone is. But those records are kept by those cell phone providers for business purposes, and they are accurate. We have had hit after hit of where each of these players are, and we have been able to support their locations with video footage. Alicia Andrews' phone is at the McDonald's the night when Charles Jones is killed, right before they go to McDonald's. And you can see on video Davion Murphy. Davion Murphy lies to law enforcement when he knows they have him. He knows they've tracked him to Tampa. He's like, oh, I was at an Airbnb. And he gives this name of Darius Beals and says, oh, I was there, but I wasn't there on the 23rd. On the 22nd, I was there the 23rd after the murder occurred. He doesn't want to place himself in Tampa on the 22nd because he knows what that means. He knows that that means he was in Tampa before Charles Jones was gunned down, and he was in Tampa when Charles Jones was gunned down. So he lies. He never admits to being at this McDonald's. But you know that he is lying, and that he is lying for a reason. Alicia Andrews' phone is there, and so is Davion Murphy's phone at 1:40 a.m. after they had arrived to that Airbnb. Silver Chevy Cruze, again, the video doesn't lie. The cameras don't lie, and this McDonald's has a camera at every angle on the exterior of that McDonald's, as well as on the window of the drive-thru, where now we can all see for ourselves Davion Murphy. Again, Alicia Andrews' iCloud, and I want to mention this. These are extractions from their phones from Apple, because we never get the device of Alicia Andrews. We never get the device of Sean Gathright. We never get the device of Isaiah Chance, because they have gotten rid of them. You've heard testimony that they had new phones, that Detective Ramos had to go to Apple to get what were considered backups. Because if you have an iPhone, regardless of whether or not you get rid of and destroy your device, if you back it up, Apple will have it. So the data from the phones that we get in this case aren't from their phones. And again, they have gotten rid of phones for a reason. You saw Sean Gathright get pulled over in Jacksonville after this crime. He had a new phone. And also a piece of evidence was a sheet with all the phones that he wanted to program his new phone with. And 2 phone numbers on that sheet were Charles Jones, wasn't written Charles Jones. Next to Charles Jones's phone number was G. His nickname is Guttaman, Guttazay. He knows him as G. And Rashad Murphy is also on that note because he wants to make sure that he still knows Rashad Murphy's number. But Rashad Murphy, that shared phone number that he and Charmaine Steiger have, that phone number was written down. Rashad Murphy's name was not written down to that. GH was. GH, the first 2 letters of Ghost. He gets rid of his phone, he thinks he's deleted the data, and now he's got to reprogram his phone with all the important numbers that he written down so that he could reprogram his phone. So ask yourselves why, like any normal person that has an iPhone, that gets a new iPhone, just relies on the backup. Because if you want to know all of the phone numbers that you have saved over the years, nobody remembers numbers now because it's just a click of a button, a click of a profile pic. You just go to an Apple store, Verizon, or whoever your carrier is, and they do what? They back up the phone and all of your contacts, all of your data magically appear. Unless you do not want somebody to see what you had been doing on your phone and you deleted it, but you forgot about the backup and didn't realize law enforcement could still get it. So again, not just the ammunition suitable for firing in an AR found in his car after the homicide, but proof that he had got rid of his phone and was reprogramming it with 2 very close contacts, Ghost and Guttazay. This is from Alicia Andrews' extraction, showing her again following and tracking the victim, going to teasers. More mapping of her 341. And then, of course, we see coordination, verification, proof. Because we know she is in the silver Chevy Cruze with her boyfriend, Isaiah Chance. And yes, there is photographic evidence that backs up and support all of these phone records and the cell hawk mapping that was done on the advanced timing. Photo that she took from, or her or Isaiah took at Truth 18 parking lot, still on the Apple iCloud. And again, we see her leaving, going to the Uber, and again, her phone is showing she's exactly in the vicinity of the Airbnb the following morning. And the Uber driver, the tracking of her phone again continues throughout the state of Florida as she's going home. And again, her very location is supported by the license plate reader in Bradford County, showing she is in that vicinity when she is driving by in the Uber, driving to Sean Gathright's house. Let's look at Isaiah Chance's cell phone location. This is before the murder. This is when he is at Sean Gathright's house. This is when you clearly can see a firearm with an extended magazine. Just like what shooter number 1 is carrying and firing at the victim in Home to Suites the following day. And guess what? His phone records, Isaiah Chance's phone records, put him here at the very time he's arrived to start loading up at his good friend Sean Gathright's house. And make no mistake, they are good friends. We have multiple hits of that BMW, Isaiah Chance's BMW at Sean Gathright's house. But again, based on what you actually can see, when you see the vivid video cameras from Sean Gathright's house, you see Isaiah Chance, he knows the code. He just casually goes in. You see a family dog that does not bark at him. You see that he freely enters this location. They are good friends. He has entrusted a good friend to conspire with to commit first-degree premeditated murder. Here he is loading up. Again, his cell phone places in there at the same time where you can see him on video. His cell phone, there is not as much activity during the course of the homicide because they really are relying primarily on his girlfriend's phone. But there are a couple of times that his phone is providing location data at the same time that Alicia Andrews' phone is providing location data. And at 2:30 a.m., it is showing him in the location of Teasers when the silver Chevy Cruze is there. When he can be seen on video walking with his girlfriend in that parking lot. It is there when, this again is Alicia Andrews when she gets back the next day, 6:23 after the homicide. This is another one of Isaiah Chance's, going back to 2:38 a.m. Again, silver Chevy Cruze, not black Impala. And this digital evidence has allowed us to show which one of the two tall individuals is in which vehicle. We know based on the cell phone data and the videos that it is Isaiah Chance with his girlfriend Alicia Andrews in that silver Chevy Cruze, because his phone is also hitting when it is only the two of them in that vehicle at approximately 2:38 a.m. His cell phone does ping at the murder scene. There's 3 pings that occurred around the time when the homicide is being committed. This is again the silver Chevy Cruze, his phone 441. We know that this is the silver Chevy Cruze. You heard from Detective Ramos that there was a little bit of damage unique to this particular vehicle, and when they finally located the vehicle in Georgia, it had the exact same type of damage. His cell phone mapping, putting him at the Airbnb when you can actually see him holding his cell phone, and clearly can see that that is Isaiah Chance. Again, another hit when they are loading up at Sean Gathright's house. We have now moved on to Sean Gathright's cell phone. His phone is obviously there. Loading up heavy bags into the suspect vehicle that carried the 3 armed assailants that gunned down Julio Foolio, Charles Jones, and gunned down his friends. Again, black Chevy Impala, car belongs to his mother. He is the primary user of that vehicle. No coincidence that his cell phone is pinging in that very location around Teasers at the time the vehicle finally shows up at Teasers. More cell phone mapping. This is when it is staging across the street from Truth 18 after the victim has arrived at Truth 18. Again, his phone data put him in that vicinity, corroborated by video photographic evidence that he is the person in the black Chevy Impala. Again, at the murder scene, black Chevy Impala parked, drives the long way around. Eventually he gets out with the 2 other gunmen. And no surprise, no coincidence, here we are the next day when he is entering a code to get back into the Airbnb, probably because that's the first time he's actually used the front door. But again, you see his cell phone device in his hand, and the data provided by AT&T clearly show that that device is in the vicinity of the Airbnb. Here we go to the Polk County 475 Opal. Afterwards, he gets rid of the black Chevy Impala. This is what is a hot car, right? He's just committed first-degree premeditated murder of a highly prominent rapper in Jacksonville. They shot up not just Julio Foolio, not just Gino Norris, not just Xavier Edwards, not just Camilla Bentley. They fired upon a fully booked home 2 suites. You heard that there were other people that were there that were impacted by the gunfire, even though they weren't shot. They are firing AR rifles in a public parking lot of Home to Suites and Holiday Inn with enough firepower not only to penetrate the cars, but to penetrate the buildings, windows, AC units. You heard from Pablo Gabor and how his family was staying there and was awoken to bullets penetrating their hotel room. You heard from Audra Agramonte, who is moving her daughter into the USF dormitories, how they were awoken by gunfire and how she was flung to the floor because bullets were coming through their window. They know that an investigation is begun. I want to talk to you about tampering with evidence. The only defendant that is charged with tampering with physical evidence is Sean Gathright. And it's because what he does here. To prove tampering with physical evidence, the state must prove the following 2 elements. Sean Gathright knew that a criminal trial, proceeding, or investigation by duly constituted prosecuting authority, law enforcement agency, grand jury, or legislative committee of Florida was pending or was about to be instituted. These are ors. And so what we are talking about, what we have to prove for element number 1 is that he knew that an investigation by a law enforcement agency was about to be instituted. You shoot and kill a high-profile, prominent rapper from Jacksonville. You shoot up a Home to Suites and Holiday Inn that had many people, many guests staying there. You absolutely know law enforcement will be starting an investigation. There is no doubt he knew that they would be investigating the homicide of Charles Jones and the attempted homicide of 3 of his friends. And knowing that, element number 2, Sean Gathright altered, destroyed, concealed, or removed any item with purpose to impair its availability in such proceeding or investigation. So there's 2 things that he is doing here. He has actually removed the suspect vehicle, and he is concealing it. He doesn't want to be caught in the vehicle that was used by the 3 armed assailants, including himself. So he is going to hide it at Grandma's in Polk County. He's not going to take it back to Jacksonville with him. It's a hot vehicle. But there's another video that you saw, because the one thing that he does when he loads items out of it and then goes to the gold SUV, he's seen on camera wiping the doors. And I know there's been a lot of talk about there's a rag with DNA, law enforcement can get it. What we are talking about is wiping down fingerprints. There is no need for law enforcement to do fingerprints in this case because he has wiped down the very areas that his other co-conspirators, his other principals to murder who were in that car, he's wiped them away. He's destroyed it. He's removed that evidence. That is the basis of the tampering with evidence that is count 6. Cell phone mapping again. Davion Murphy, he had the least data that was provided by the cell phone company. And you heard from Detective Ramos that he reviewed all of the data. And when looking at all of the data, there is something that is different during the time when the homicide is actually being committed. There's hardly any data there. And that can happen when a phone is powered down or not in use. And it is not typical of what you normally see by his regular data use. Lots of activity before the homicide, lots of activity after the homicide, no data during the homicide. So again, a known gang member who's concerned about phone being tracked can obviously shut off their phone and not use it. And he would not have had a need to use it because the two phones the vehicles were utilizing to communicate back and forth were Alicia Andrews and Sean Gathright. But again, cell phone data confirmed by video photographic evidence that Davion Murphy is indeed in Tampa, Florida on June 23rd, a few hours before his arch rival, his arch enemy, is shot and killed. There he is at the Airbnb. You also heard the video of Charles Jones. Charles Jones seems to be somewhat upset that Davion Murphy is appearing on the Ring video because Davion Murphy is not supposed to be there. Again, more cell phone evidence from Davion Murphy, not just at the Airbnb when he's captured on film, but also the silver Chevy Cruze. Rashad Murphy takes the Uber to Jacksonville. Somebody has to drive the silver Chevy Cruze back to Jacksonville. Cell phone mapping of Davion Murphy places him in the area when the silver Chevy Cruze is being driven back towards the Jacksonville area after the homicide. Now let's talk about the other evidence that is critical in this case. We have already established all of the elements of first-degree premeditated murder, of attempted first-degree murder, by showing you who were in those two vehicles. There is no reasonable doubt that all 5 parties have been identified. The 2 trackers in the silver Chevy Cruze, Alicia Andrews and Isaiah Chance. The 3 masked armed gunmen, Rashad and Davion Murphy and Sean Gathright. But there is even more evidence that shows they absolutely are the people who committed this horrific crime that terrorized all of those victims that were with Charles Jones that night. After they locate the black Chevy Impala and realized he has switched vehicles, they put out an alert to Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, June 26th of 2024, to the vehicle that he is swapped out for, the gold Toyota SUV. And there's a traffic stop on Sean Gathright. And there is a multitude of evidence that is found in his car. We talked about the skill and the training to accurately be able to shoot and accurately shoot the driver and all of the passengers, as well as the driver of vehicle number 2. There certainly is enough evidence that shows that he was highly trained, he was highly skillful in being able to shoot an AR rifle. And all of this is relevant because they are parts or ammunition that are suitable for use in the very types of weapons that were used to kill Charles Jones. You heard a lot of evidence, again, from Officer DeJesus about what these parts are and what kind of firearms that they are used for. And this Max Tech is the same brand that was utilized here in Tampa and found in Tampa. All of this is relevant and shows not only that he is highly skillful and trained, but also connect him and is relevant that he has the exact type of parts suitable for use in AR rifles. He has the exact type of Mac Tech ammunition for the handgun. The only shell casings that were left in Tampa were Max Tech, and he just happens, again, coincidentally, to have that very brand in the vehicle that he is driving after he switched out the murder vehicle. But more importantly, and you've heard a lot of testimony from Amara Drew, you heard a lot of cross-examinations about the shell casings that are in this box from his vehicle. Before we go to his, I'm sorry, let me back up. Amara Drew was able to get the spent shell casings from the attempted murder of Charles Jones from October 7th of 2023. You've heard that there have been multiple attempts on Charles Jones's life because of what he does, because of the type of drill rap music that he does. They have tried to kill him before. And you have heard a lot of questions, cross-examination. There has been nobody arrested for that attempted murder. They did not know who did it. But in the investigation of this case, of this homicide, that led to the arrest of Sean Gathright and the stop of his vehicle, they now can connect him and his co-conspirators to the attempt on Charles Jones's life that occurred in October 7th of 2024. They tried to kill him before. They were not successful. And this time they were going to ensure that they were successful. You've heard how blatant this social media war is. You heard how after Charles Jones was shot in that foot on October 7th, that he gets online and goes live. This is what they do, and kind of taunts them, says, "I'm still alive," words to that effect. They were not going to miss him when he was in Tampa celebrating his birthday at a known location. This is evidence of motive. This shows that it is no coincidence that Sean Gathright and his good friend Isaiah Chance, who is an ATK, maybe going to 1200, allied with 1200, are with Rashad and Davion Murphy, arch enemies of Charles Jones, that they are connected to the attempted murder on Charles Jones's life. That is the most relevant evidence of motive in this case. They are tied to trying to kill him months before this occurred. Ballistically, that is the fact in this case that they cannot refute. It was fired by the same gun in that box. The same gun fired. Those shell casings are the same gun that fired at Charles Jones and injured him in October 7th of 2023. Then we get to the search warrant of his residence. 2 AR rifles, 2 AR-style rifles located, similar in appearance to the ones that were used in this crime. Brass catchers, like the ones that were used to commit the homicide of Charles Jones. You saw the video footage. How many times were the two gunmen, shooter 2 and shooter 3, firing those rounds from those AR rifles, all of that muzzle flash. No shell casings left behind, because they had devices like that attached to it, trying not to leave evidence behind. Fortunately for them, not AR rifle spent casings were found, but 2 9mm spent casings were found. They did leave 9mm casings behind in Tampa, Florida, 31 to be exact. They did their best to try to get DNA, couldn't get DNA off of them. That was the only thing that those shooters left behind that TPD was trying to trace. But they were able to connect them ballistically, because out of Sean Gathright's safe in his house in a brass catcher, a mesh brass catcher, are 2 9mm shell casings that again tie them directly to the homicide here in Tampa. No doubt, no question. You heard from Amar Drew, the same gun, the same 9mm that fired those 2 shell casings in Sean Gathright's house are the same gun that shooter number 1 unloaded on the car of Charles Jones on that Home to Suites video, where he left all 31 of those shell casings. They got rid of that gun. They got rid of their phones. They got rid of that gun. You've heard about other 9mm that were tested that they had. We never found the 9mm. That's what Amara Drew would need to be actually able to test to see if we got the gun. We never recovered it because they got rid of it. These are photos of the gun. And again, everything else that was in Sean Gathright's house, all suitable for use in the weapons that were used here in Tampa to kill Charles Jones and injure his friends. The other thing you saw, I don't have pictures of it here, was evidence of destruction of evidence of firearms. They pulled out of the sink, soaking in water, a bunch of boxes and packages that had been ripped up and torn. As TPD pieces them back together, you all see that those are parts belonging again to firearms. Now let's get to additional evidence. There is a mountain of evidence in this case, and I'm going to go through it quickly.
I tell you what, before you do that,
Yes.
let's just go ahead and take a quick 5-minute comfort break, okay?
Okay.
All rise.
And you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the jury, you have already seen a mountain of evidence that shows that Tampa Police Department identified each and every one of those 5 people that came to Tampa in those 2 vehicles. The forensic evidence just adds on to that. There is no dispute with the video evidence and what it shows, and that shows a highly organized and planned first-degree premeditated murder. We have been able to show and prove to you who were all 5 of those individuals that traveled here for a day and did nothing but stalk, track, and follow the victim, based on the video evidence and the cell phone evidence alone. But after the detectives did a further, deeper investigation into all of the forensic digital evidence out there, it is beyond all reasonable doubt that all 4 of those defendants, Rashad Murphy, Davion Murphy, Sean Gathright, and Isaiah Chance, are the 4 men who conspired to kill Charles Jones, traveled down to Tampa for one day in order to do just that, and they did kill him and shoot up his friends. And if you look at these Instagram accounts, all of the social media, We know who they are. Rashad Murphy, Ghost 187, Sean Gathright, that's his Instagram name, 5 Eandre, and Isaiah Chance, Gutazay. We have all of their cell phone records. We know what their phone numbers are. We know what some of the information that was on their phones, not because we got their cell phone devices with the exception of Rashad Murphy, but because we got Apple iCloud search warrants and got the data from the backups from their cell phone devices. We got their iCloud accounts via search warrant. Sean Gathwright's Instagram return results shows what his username is, his account identifier. These are a photo from his Instagram. These are the different accounts that are associated with that phone number, with his Apple iCloud, and with his phone number. You heard all of that testimony from Detective Ramos and all of the information that was obtained from their Apple iCloud, from their Instagram, from their social media that prove that they were tracking and hunting the victim while he was in Tampa. Isaiah Chance, Mr. Richoff War. There is a very real war going on in Jacksonville between ATK, 1200, and 6 Block. And he is a do-it, and he is getting rich off of it because he is willing to take out Charles Jones, the head of 6 Block. There's a reason he changed his name to Mr. Richoff War. Another one of his names, Mastermind. That's his phone number. At double Gutazay, at Gutazay. These are his Gmail. That's his Gmail account, Gutazay42. All tracked back to him and his phone. This is one of his postings from Instagram. Rashad Murphy, Ghost 187, Ghost 187 official at Gmail. You heard that there is detective, gang detective after gang detective that knows Rashad Murphy is Ghost. They just know it. Detective Ramos actually went out of his way to prove and tie this Instagram account to Rashad Murphy, because you can put any name to set up an Instagram account. You heard what he had to do to actually connect him to Ghost 187 to ensure that we know that he indeed is Ghost. The same way Sean Gathright refers to him, GH, on the notepad to set up his phone again. His Instagram return, the vanity name, Ghost 187, there was a Gmail that was associated with it. Subpoena to Google. Google Pay, when you are going to actually use finances or bank information to pay for something on Google, you cannot now use a fictional name. So he was able to get the actual real information, financial account, and the actual legal name associated with Ghost 187 official at gmail.com. And it is Rashad Murphy. Davion Murphy, that is his phone number, that is his Gmail account. Shug Spaz is what he is using to set up his T-Mobile. Again, you don't have to use your name, but you know the significance of Shug Spaz. That is the name he used as his subscriber name. Isaiah Chance, June 6th of 2024. The only count I haven't talked to you about yet is criminal conspiracy, and that is count 2. And all 4 of the defendants are charged with it, because all 4 of them conspired to commit Charles Jones. And criminal conspiracy is just the act of conspiring and agreeing to commit first-degree premeditated murder. And we have started our conspiracy from June 6th of 2024. It probably goes back even farther than that, in Jacksonville and Duval County, and continued on here into Hillsborough County when they actually committed the murder of Charles Jones. But we start the conspiracy, and I'm going to read to you what are the two elements we have to prove beyond all reasonable doubt to prove criminal conspiracy. The intent of the defendant was the offense of first-degree murder would be committed. In order to carry out the intent, the defendant agreed, conspired, combined, or confederated with one or more of his co-defendants to cause the first-degree murder to be committed either by them or one of them or by some other person. Those are the only two elements that we have to prove, that they conspired with another one of their co-defendants to commit first-degree premeditated murder. It is not necessary that the agreement, conspiracy, combination, or confederation to commit first-degree murder be expressed in any particular words or words that pass between the conspirators. It is not necessary that the defendant do any act in furtherance of the offense conspired. This is a crime just to agree to do it. And here, this case, we actually have the completed crime. They are all guilty of this. The reason it says it's not necessary that the agreement or conspiracy be expressed in any particular words or words passed between the conspirators. When conspirators plan a cold, calculated, evil murder, there will be no witnesses outside of the co-conspirators to that conversation. We will never be able to present to you what they actually said when they were planning to do this, when they were planning to commit a hit on Charles Jones, because they are all in it together. They are a gang and they trust one another. They are family to one another, and they are not willing to talk about one another. And there will be no witnesses to that conspiracy. But the evidence in this case proves that they did conspire to do just that. The facts and the circumstances of how this crime was committed, how it is all captured on video from the beginning at Sean Gathright's house to them loading in, to all of those vehicles meeting together with all 5 of those individual people coming together already knowing what they are going to do in one night. And they did it. That doesn't happen unless they conspired and they planned it. So all of the facts and the circumstances that you have seen prove that they are all guilty of conspiring to commit first-degree premeditated murder. Not only did they conspire to do it, they actually did do it. And so when we talk about conspiracy, we do have evidence of it, because again, this war is so blatant that it went on social media. There is actually an Instagram story that law enforcement, gang detectives in Jacksonville, Florida monitor. They monitor their Instagram, they monitor their Twitter, it's called X now. They monitor it all because they know that these rival gangs get on social media and taunt one another. They post drill rap videos. On June 6th of 2024, Isaiah Chance eventually gets on X with Charles Jones. But before that, again, we had ample evidence from his Instagram account and his postings of what he is posting about, which clearly show, again, we're going to talk about a gang enhancement in a little while, but that this is a gang war that is going on. He says, "Heem, you never did shit about Tilly Green ass purple. Light skin F you. Couldn't even go get them ones who was sliding. don't do shit, but you run your mouth all day. He is talking about Tilly, and you heard from those Jacksonville gang detectives about the significance of Tilly. Tilly is one of the people on his side that have been killed in this gang war. And you heard what they were talking about, these postings, that he is posting it and that he is upset. He's upset with ATK because nobody has gotten street justice for his friend Tilly. And he is very vocal and active on social media about this. And then there's even a thing, go to my Twitter, Instagram, keep deleting his stuff because of the content of what he is posting. That takes us to June 6th of 2024. I'm not going to play it again, but you saw that there was a dispute. And this is an open forum. It is a public forum. Anybody can be watching. Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is watching anonymously and recording it because Getaway is talking to his arch rival, Julio Foolio, Charles Jones. And they recorded it. They screen recorded it. And you heard that they are arguing on social media that Charles Jones may have talked about or accused him of being gay. And that Charles Jones is taunting Isaiah Chance. And you heard that Isaiah Chance specifically talks to the victim and asks him about what? How's your foot, cuz? Again, another tie to the fact that they tried to kill Charles Jones by shooting him earlier in October of 2023. He basically is asking him about that injury, and you know that he and Sean Gathright and his co-conspirators are connected now ballistically to that attempt on Charles Jones's life. And at some point, Charles Jones says, you've got bigger fish to fry, and there's a back and forth exchange between the two of them. And why do we start the conspiracy then? Because we know that there is a dispute between the two of them. We know that they tried to kill him earlier in October. But right after this very public display on social media for the public to see, his two co-conspirators, Sean Gathright and Ghost, who was saved in Sean Gathright's phone as Ghost, surprisingly enough, because this is from the Apple iCloud information, there is messaging between the two of them shortly after their good friend, Getaway, and the victim in this case, Charles Jones, is going live on X's fighting. They're concerned. They don't want public exposure right now. You have Rashad Murphy contacting Sean Gathright, Isaiah Chance, Getaway's good friend, saying, make sure you're brought in a good headspace before we go with his move. We got bigger shit to tend to, ain't worth any energy right now. They don't want him publicly on social media fighting with the victim. They're very much conspiring to kill. It's not a good look to be in a public war with somebody they are personally trying to take out. Sean Gathright likes that message that Rashad Murphy sends. It is clear who they are talking about. The only person who just went live, it was their good bra, is Getaway. Sean Gathright, I ain't heard from bro, but I'm a check with him. And then Rashad Murphy says he's probably not going to pick up. He on IG, Instagram, letting these and get him out of character. He turned up on that right now. Also on Rashad Murphy, who's at war with Charles Jones, he coincidentally follows and looks at his very rival's Instagram because he is tracking him. He is following him, not because they're good friends. Charles Jones's group, his friend Robert Howard went to prison for shooting one of his cousins. They're not friends, but he is tracking Charles Jones's social media and actually has saved the very profile picture of Charles Jones to his own. June 14th. This is when Charles Jones is publicly posting on Instagram that he is going to be on Tampa celebrating his birthday at Teasers with the address, June 14th. This is why we have started that conspiracy as far back as June 6th of 2024. It is clear they are already planning on killing Charles Jones. They are already conspiring to do it. Getaway, Instagram, ran up my money and all songs gone. This is another posting, 6:30 on Getaway's Instagram. This is a photo of Tilly, another victim of this gang war, one of his friends that he's posting June 14th. This is Ghost 187, Rashad Murphy, liking Charles Jones' posts. So we know that they know Charles Jones is going to be here in Tampa and where and when he will be. They're not doing this because they like him. The extraction of Rashad Murphy's cell phone in Georgia. All kinds of stuff were taken out of his phone. They couldn't do a whole download because of the state of the phone, but they were able to get some cell phone extraction information. Again, he had a license of his cousin, Davion Murphy. We know that they are connected. We also both know that they are 1,200. Rashad Murphy's cell phone extraction had Isaiah Chance in his phone, saved in his phone. Connection after connection. There is a Youngin Ace video screenshot that was on his phone. Double G, again, we know that is Isaiah Chance on his phone. This is on Rashad Murphy's phone. This is a posting on his phone of the victim, Charles Jones, Big Six and Little Six. And then a photograph on his phone of a black Dodge Charger. This is Charles Jones's black Dodge Charger. They are already tracking him, garnering intelligence, so they know what vehicle they need to look at when they come to Tampa to hunt and kill him. This is intelligence that they are gathering. That is the vehicle after they shot him up. And it matches exactly a photograph that he already had saved in his phone. So they knew exactly what type of vehicle Charles Jones would be in when he was in Tampa. Alicia Andrews' iCloud messaging. They need an Airbnb in Tampa, June 21st. Again, the day before they leave to Tampa. They are trying to get someone who is not associated, not affiliated with the gang, to put an Airbnb in her name. And this is what this exchange is. She specifically is looking for B&B in Tampa. Falls through. So let's go back to Rashad Murphy's cell phone extraction. This is a photograph of a picture that is on his phone wearing the same outfit, the same black boots that he's shown in that Walmart video. And you can see this black mesh bag. You can also see the handle of a firearm. June 22nd, the day before coming to Tampa, he's wearing all black. He's got a black ski cap on his head. He's wearing all black, and he's got a firearm. He also already has obtained the silver Chevy Cruze that they use as a surveillance tracking vehicle for their mission. Cash App records. The forensic evidence in this case goes on and on and on, tying each and every one of them to this conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and it shows them that they are tied and connected to the gangs, that they are themselves in it, and that they are friends with them as well. Isaiah Chance, Cash App Records, Mr. Rich Off War, his correct address from his driver's license set up this account. Cash App is how we pay for things. These are all the display names that he has used. Clearly, he is the owner of this Cash App account. It has his official name. It has his nicknames on there, Double Getaway, Redmond 23. And finally, back in 2023, August 11th, Ghost, August 11th of 2023, Ghost, and then August 11th of 2023, he changes his name to Mr. Rich Off War. There's only one gang war that you have heard over and over about in this case, and it is because it is evidence of motive, why all four of these defendants did what they did. And there is a connection. There is a $390 payment on the Cash App to Mr. Getaway, Mr. Rich Off War, Isaiah Chance from J. Greasy, $390 Cash App payment on June 22nd of 2024, right before Mr. Rich Off War has to make the payment for the Airbnb that is in Rashad Murphy's name. Airbnb booking subpoena is again confirming that that was the actual address of the Airbnb, claiming that he had no idea that the Airbnb was in Tampa because on the messaging to his phone it just says Pond Oasis. He had no idea he'd be in Tampa, yet he tells law enforcement and lies to law enforcement when confronted with the actual evidence that they have against him. Oh yeah, I did go to the Airbnb just for a second. Lie after lie, not in Tampa, not in Tampa, not in Tampa. Oh, we've got you on video surveillance at Sean Gathright's house getting out an Uber. Oh, I was in Tampa. I did go to the Airbnb. I just went there for a second with Darius Beals. I didn't have my phone. I used Darius Beals' phone. Lie after lie. It is no mistake why he used a dead person as an alibi, because law enforcement wouldn't be able to question him. But what him and Davion Murphy, who also tries to use Darius Beals as an excuse, as a way they mysteriously got to the Airbnb, not before the murder occurs, only after, to stay there just a second. He can't tell law enforcement how he gets the address to the Airbnb and now how he mysteriously knows it is in Tampa, because he actually drives and shows up and gets there. We all know he does, because he's there when the Uber gets there. He has been there all along as part of this mission to kill Charles Jones. Connection after connection after connection. He is on the Airbnb account with his ID. The cell phone extraction of Rashad Murphy has Isaiah Chance saved in his phone as Davion. There is no mistaking their connection. Here's the screenshot of the confirmation of the Airbnb that is sent on June 22nd in the early morning hours. And coincidentally, his driver's license is screenshotted at the same time. They are tracking the victim. They are hunting him. I've said this time and time again, not just based on the video, proven by the video evidence from teasers, from Truth 18, from the USF poll cam, from the cameras from Home to Suites, but it is proven on their social media. The victim only location that he posted was teasers. He advertises about a pool party. He doesn't give out that address. All they know is Tampa, Florida. Here's a message some point if the girls want the address, DM him, so he's not giving out the Airbnb address. So we have Rashad Murphy, time stamped, again, got a man, 6:22. There's a conversation between Isaiah Chance and Sean Gathright, where Sean Gathright is receiving the address of the Airbnb in Tampa. No surprise to anyone. And then a screenshot again, Rashad Murphy has got a man, 6:22 is when, 7:55 is when Isaiah Chance, Alicia Andrews, and Sean Gathright get to the Airbnb, 7:55. And then there is a screen recording from Julio Foolio, Charles Jones, posting about the 5 to 6 o'clock pull-up pool party. And that is screen recorded. We know that that's on on Charles Jones' Instagram, because Detective Ramos watched it after the homicide occurred and then got the records of all of Charles Jones' Instagram stories. But amazingly, coincidentally enough, it is on Sean Gathright's iCloud return. He recorded where the victim was going to be at a pool party. And then what else do we get from Sean Gathright's phone? He knows that this is part of Charles Jones' story on Instagram, showing the Airbnb, has a lovely pool, it is waterfront. We know this is the Airbnb he's staying at because that's Gino Norris in the background. What does Sean Gathright do? He saves it in his phone. The mortal enemy of his close friend Isaiah Chance. He has 9700 North Nebraska, address to the club. We know that this is his phone. It shows Victoria Lakes, his home address, as one of the main locations. Shows that he is already checked out and is looking at Teaser's Gentleman Club, the place that Isaiah Chance said that he was going to be at, the place that Rashad Murphy liked that posting of the victim, knowing that he's going to be at Teaser's. His co-defendant is looking up the address, MapQuest, so they know exactly how to drive to where the victim is going to be. Timestamp of the search. Teaser's Gentleman Club, 6/23/2024. It's not just Sean Gathright hunting and searching for the victim at this Airbnb. Charles Jones is posting, and he is tagging Ms. Lee. There's post, and then it is reposted on Ms. Mizzle. I keep saying Ms. Lee, I'm sorry, on Mizzle's post. So now we have Rashad Murphy also hunting for an Airbnb in Tampa. Sean Gathright is trying to find out where Charles Jones is. His co-defendant, Rashad Murphy, who claims not to even be in Tampa, is searching for, see this message, get the B&B from me, gang. That's his words on his Instagram messaging. Hunting, searching for Charles Jones. So now we have Rashad Murphy doing it, we have Sean Gathright doing it, and now we have Isaiah Chance. He's looking up Mizzle. The person he knows based on Charles Jones' Instagram story is with Charles Jones. They all three are hunting him. They want to know where he is at the Airbnb. They tracked him, they followed him, they hunted him, and they found him, and then they gunned him down. That was the only purpose for their trip. That was their mission, and they succeeded at it because of how they planned to commit it. Sean Gathright, again, searching for Charles Jones. You heard about the extraction, the communication that he has with Kyla Enright and Nevaeh Gathright. I need you to text Fat Boy. Lot of conversation, lot of questioning. Who's Fat Boy? Law enforcement believes Fat Boy is Xavier Edwards. Do we have to prove who Fat Boy is? No, we don't. I don't know who Fat Boy is. It doesn't matter because the context of this conversation is clear. Sean Gathright is trying to find out where Charles Jones is, where Six is, by dubious means, by using a girl to get on a phone, FaceTime conversation with somebody they know that Charles Jones is with, pretending like she wants to get with them so that she can get the address of the Airbnb. I don't know who Fat Boy is. It's irrelevant. What is very relevant, which is evidence of motive, which is evidence of hunting for Six, hunting for Charles Jones, is the rest of this message. Hey sis, I need you to text Fat Boy and tell him you're trying to pull up on him and trying to see him tonight. They want to know why. He's in Tampa right now, but make it seem like you don't know he there. He had a B&B with Six. He like, I want to pull up on him. I'm drunk and I'm trying to F you. That is what he is telling them to do. The purpose of this messaging to these girls are to use them to get intel. Intel as to where Charles Jones is. No, they're trying to say, where are you? You want to come hang out with us? He's like, no, I'm in Tampa. I'm trying to see where his B&B is. He's trying to see where Six's B&B is. Who B&B? Six. I don't care who Fat Boy is. It couldn't be any clearer. This isn't coded language. It is very clear what SeanGathright's purpose is. He wants to find Six. These girls actually do it. They report that he's at Beezer's. They get it a little right. He's going to Teasers, not Beezer's. More social media from Charles Jones. Julio Foolio actually saying that he's about ready to go to the show. And we all know, they know where that show is going to be. Braun is contacted. Sean Gathright all of a sudden needs to add a new contact to his phone. Not saved before now. She is Alicia Andrews. She is Isaiah Chance. She's there with them all weekend. Why now does he need to save her contact? Because they are purposely going to use her phone to communicate while they are going on this mission. So he has to save her phone because these are the phones that are going to be utilized between both vehicles, the surveillance team and the hit team. Braun, Sean Gathright from his iCloud account. These are the confirmed numbers of Alicia Andrews, now saved as ERON in his phone. And they do communicate. There is a sharing of location, 2 a.m. There is incoming and outcoming phone calls. And you've heard about call detail records from Detective Ramos, and it's important because there is calling going back and forth, 208, 208. But you also heard from Detective Ramos that there is video footage clearly when Isaiah Chance has that pink phone up to his ear that is not on call detail records, that are not captured in these cell phone records. Because there are apps out there, you heard that, there are apps out there that you can use purposefully if you don't want to be tracked by cell phone companies, if you don't want to be tracked by law enforcement. Talked about Telegram, WhatsApp. There are other applications on your phone that can be utilized just like a cell phone for messaging, for phone calls. They are communicating surreptitiously, secretively, for a specific purpose. That is what people do when you are on a mission to commit first-degree premeditated murder. Timeline, 2:24 a.m., Chevy Cruise to Teasers. 2:27, Chance and Andrews exit the Cruise in the silver Chevy Cruise. 2:29 a.m., not there for a club, never go in, go back to the Chevy Cruise. What we do know is that Charles Jones and his entourage, his friends, the people with him, are in front of that club. They have spotted him. They have completed their task at that location. And guess what? They are trying desperately to get in touch with Sean Gathright. He's not picking up the phone. Whatever application they're using, he's not answering. So they send 2 messages. Incoming and outcoming, again, with the timestamps on them. The communication, the coordination. No coincidence that there is communication and then all of a sudden the black Chevy Impala arrives. Going to Truth 18, 4:10 a.m. is now when we're at this timeline. Second nightclub. Charles Jones and his friends leaving, Truth 18, the second club. More sharing location between Alicia Andrews' phone and Sean Gathright. Communication, coordination. The evidence in this case is overwhelming. You have it based on the video footage. You have it based on the cell phone data. And now you have it based on all of the social media and what they were doing that night. The evidence in this case overwhelmingly show and prove that all 4 of these defendants conspired to commit the first-degree murder of Charles Jones. That they planned it, that that's the only reason that they were here, and that is what they spent the entirety of their night doing on June 22nd going into June 23rd of 2024. And that they actually found him and did what they intended to do. They killed him. They also knew who was with him, how many cars were in his party, and who was traveling with him. And they managed to shoot 3 more of Charles Jones' friends and people that were with him. That is first-degree premeditated murder for all defendants. Conspiracy to commit first-degree premeditated murder for all defendants. And 3 counts of attempted first-degree murder for the shooters for intentionally shooting at and trying to kill Camilla Bentley, who's not even in a gang, Gino Norris, who is not in a gang, and Xavier Edwards. They intentionally shot into those vehicles, into areas knowing where people were seated, and they did that to kill them. That is 3 counts of attempted first-degree murder for the 3 shooters, and then tampering with evidence against Sean Gathright. There is a lot of evidence that you've had to look at over these last 2 weeks. And I know that you have been paying attention, and there are a lot of instructions that the judge is going to instruct you on tomorrow. And one of the things that she will instruct you on is that you need to look at each defendant separately and apply the evidence to them. But remember that principal instruction. That applies to all of them, because they all intended for Charles Jones to be dead, and they all did something to assist. They all participated. They all had a role. And they are all guilty as principals to first-degree premeditated murder. And you need to put them and treat them into the shoes as if they had all carried the gun that actually shot and killed him. You will also be asked to make special findings. The judge will tell you and instruct you that the law requires you to find each and every one of the defendants guilty for the highest offense that has been proven beyond all reasonable doubt. A professional hit that was planned and executed and completed is first-degree premeditated murder. It is the highest offense. It has been proven beyond all reasonable doubt. To intentionally try to kill his friends, that is attempted first-degree premeditated murder. Proven beyond all reasonable doubt. Each and every one of those top counts have been proven. And you should hold them responsible for what has been proven beyond and to the exclusion of all reasonable doubt. You will be asked to make additional findings. You'll be asked whether or not, with regards to the shooters, if they personally possessed a firearm and if they discharged a firearm. And you'll have to go through each one of those verdict forms. So there are going to be separate verdict forms for each defendant. And you'll see after you make your decision that there will be additional questions that you need to make and answer those questions. And with regards to the shooters, there are enhancements if you are the one that actually fired the gun, if you are the one that actually possessed the gun. So for Rashad Murphy, for Davion Murphy, and for Sean Gathright, there will be extra questions for each and every one of the counts that will ask you to say yes or no. And there is no doubt that they are the three individuals in the black Chevy Impala. The cell phone evidence proves it, as well as all of the video evidence that corroborates and supports it. Not even having to look at or delve in what is in their social media. The other enhancement that you are going to be asked to make specifically has to do with gang enhancements. And they apply to Isaiah Chance, to Rashad Murphy, and Davion Murphy. You will be asked to make findings whether it was proven that they were in a criminal gang and met the criteria for criminal gang membership or associate. And all three of them have met those criteria. That is why you heard all of those testimony from Jacksonville concerning the tattoos, concerning the videos. You've heard what are the requirements for gang membership. And there's 11 different factors. Admits to criminal gang membership. Nobody will admit to being a criminal gang member. Is identified by a criminal gang member by parent or guardian. There's reason, or there's factor after factor, but you heard from Detectives Griffin, you heard from Detective Nieder as to what the requirements are and what requirements were met for Rashad Murphy, for Davion Murphy, and for Isaiah Chance. And to be a member, you just need one factor. To be an associate, you just need one of those factors. To be a criminal gang member, you need two or more. Now, you have heard from Jacksonville Sheriff's detectives that they are very conservative on this. That any one of these, standing alone, does not mean that you are a gang member. And they personally have different approaches to when they actually will document and keep records on people. Because just hanging out with one can be considered a person of interest or an associate. And there are a lot of people that may hang out with gang members that have no gang membership. So when they are documenting, they tend to look for 3 or 4 factors. The law only requires 1 and 2. But it's not these standing alone. To be a gang member, you have to meet one of these criteria, but you have to be in a criminal gang, which means a formal or informal. The law requires that it is a formal or informal, ongoing organization, association, or group that has one of its primary activities the commission of criminal or delinquent acts that consists of 3 or more persons, that have identifying signs, colors, symbols, including to but not limited to terrorist organizations and hate groups. The key being, these are not people that are innocently organizing just to hang out. The key to this is it is a criminal gang, primary activities, the commission of criminal crime. And so the law requires that be a criminal gang and that to be a member 2 or more or 1 or more. When we're talking about what the law requires and the proof in this case, one of the things that we are talking about for all 3 of them is the commission of this homicide, an attempted homicide. There is no doubt that it is because of the gang war. It is because of their membership in it. And this violence going back and forth, both sides doing it, is why it was the motive for this and why this was committed. It's clear based on the social media, it's clear based on the drill raps, the type of music the victim performed, and is clear on the violence on both sides. This is why this happened. And that in it of itself shows that gang enhancement, even if the detectives just gave you one of them, would qualify all of them as an associate for the purpose of committing the criminal act of killing the head of 6 Block. Qualifies all 3 of them as associates, but you know that there was much more than that. They had been documented as gang members before this homicide ever occurred. And the detectives went over the criteria, all of the different evidence that supported Isaiah Chance being in a gang before this even occurred. The style of dress, the 23, the gang signs, all of that evidence. He met more than 1 or 2 criteria already before this ever happened. There is no doubt that he is part of a criminal gang and that has been proven to the exclusion of all reasonable doubt, and that you should hit yes to that question. Davion Murphy, tattoos. All of those tattoos you saw on him. It's not a crime to have a tattoo of a deceased person on you. It's not a crime to have as many tattoos as you want. But tattoos that have significance, that are used by gang members of a certain gang, especially of their fallen, killed members, are all over his body. Shug, the date of Shug's death is on there, their names, Jacoby, 12 Block is on his back. And you heard on the video with Detective Nieder, when he went to go take a photo of that after the homicide, where he is arrested for killing 6. And the one time where Detective Nieder is going to take a photo of the back of his neck where there is 12 Block, from Davion Murphy's own mouth is, that's the one you want. You heard it for yourselves. He knows why this first-degree homicide was happening, why it happened, why he's being questioned by a gang detective, why they want photographs of his tattoo, and when they take a picture of 1200 Block, he audibly is heard on that interview, that's the one you want. He is a member of 1200 Block, and no matter what he will say to deny it, no matter what excuse he gives for all of those other names on his body, it is because he is 1200. That is one factor. Another factor is that rap song that he wrote well before, where he is talking about Prosper, writing about meeting Prosper in 2007. You saw the posting about Prosper and Junior that was posted immediately after Charles Jones was murdered. They had been up all night stalking him, tracking him. Yet they're up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m. posting on social media. They're celebrating. That's absolutely what they've done. And you've heard cross-examination. Oh, those are their sons. Well, that rap song that he wrote talking about meeting Prosper in 2007 is definitely not a reference to his son. And Bink, another gang member, is in that rap song, that letter that you saw that he'd written well before committing his crime. Physical evidence identifying him as a gang member. Another criteria. And this case, this offense, more than any other factor, is undeniable proof that they are 1200 and that they are ATK, and that gang enhancement applies to Isaiah Chance, Rashad Murphy, and Davion Murphy. That these crimes were committed for the purpose of benefiting a gang, how can there be any doubt? You saw those videos that were posted a day after Charles Jones was killed. Game over. Just do it. All taking credit for killing 6 Block. That was the biggest takedown 1200 and ATK could have done. And there's a rap video saying, game over, you don't want a war. There is a gang war. That is the motive in this case. And the mountain of evidence that you have in front of you shows that each and every one of those defendants is guilty of everything that they are charged with.